With us now is former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland, who is with us by phone. Jeremy, I'll keep on looking this way here. So talk to me about this. Jeffrey Toobin, our friend, just wrote a terrific book on pardons and notes that it is probably among all the president's powers, the one that is most unchallengeable, the one that is most absolute. If President Biden pardons someone, President Trump can't unpardon them.
Yeah, that's generally a fair statement, and there's nothing in the law and the Constitution that says explicitly it has to be signed. So, he's going after President Biden's faculties, but, the question is what this is setting up for. This is just an effort to maybe make an extended version of going after other things as well, though one would think that President Trump should think this through, because if successful, that means that his potential pardons, whomever they may be, can be challenged in a similar manner down the road. So certainly there's an issue here, but you're correct. This is a pretty liberal right or ability of the president.
And again, the issue of auto pens. Auto pens are things that presidents have used for decades, often to sign legislation and orders. Does the use of an auto pen make anything more or less legitimate than signing it by your own hand?
It does not, and I believe this has been back since roughly Truman that auto pens have been used, give or take. So this is something that is not new. This is not technologically an advancement that, wait a second, now the president needs to go to the Court of Appeals and up to the Supreme Court to say, hey, can you use an auto pen? This is a power grab, for lack of a better term, by the president, to effectuate whether that's revenge after people he doesn't like on the January 6th committee, whether that's Jack Smith specifically or Fauci. One doesn't know, but it's certainly to move his ends, whatever they may be.
What happens then if someone does try to commence a legal investigation into someone who was pardoned by President Biden? If President Trump does follow through with this, how does it get stopped or sanctioned?
Well, ultimately it could find themselves in the court, but in a court of law. But one of the issues that I think everyone should be concerned about is the rule of law has to mean something, and we're seeing challenges to birthright. Just moments ago, talking about whether or not the deportations are legal and they have to be followed by the court's order, or the Trump administration will do what it deems it wants to do. So ultimately, it may find itself in the court, but it should never be there in the first place. There's a rule of law. There is a pardon. There's certainly questions whether you can pre-pardon someone. I understand that, but this is not the means to effectuate it by just blanketly saying at a tweet at night or a Trump True Social at night that they must be vacated.
Pushing the boundaries of the law and Constitution every which way. Jeremy Saland, thank you very much for all of your analysis.